Good morning. Good morning. I know it's Christmas. Vibes are in the air, but we are here for the sitting of the Senate. I have 4 announcements. I use this platform to first record our gratitude to all persons supporting the much-needed renovation project of the National Assembly building. To Her Excellency, Lili Wen Su, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the donation of the grant on behalf of the government and people of the Republic of China, Taiwan. To the Prime Minister, Honorable John Briceño, as Minister of Finance and Minister with responsibility for Parliamentary Affairs, for seeing value in this initiative, and to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Eamon Courtney, for including it in the bilateral agreement with Taiwan. To the Board of the George Price Center for Peace and Democracy, for providing a space for the National Assembly to operate from during the period of the renovations. To the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure Development for their lead on the design and execution of the project, and to the Central Information Technology Office and the Belize Telecommunications Limited for their technical input and guidance, and to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Valerie Woods, all parliamentarians and staff of the National Assembly who share the vision of a modern, more open and inclusive, gender-responsive, and climate-resilient Parliament, and on making Parliament more efficient and effective. This is a step to that direction. The expected tenure of the project is 14 months, inclusive of making the George Price Center fit for purpose. You will be invited shortly to a meeting with the executing agency to discuss the project to ensure it meets, as far as is reasonably possible, the unique needs of the Senate, both for its sitting and committee work, for staff support and the visitors' experience, and for those articulated in the findings of the Senate Survey of Services and Remuneration and Allowances package conducted earlier this year. You will be updated accordingly as the project progresses. Second, to inform that I represented the National Assembly at the Conference of Parties COP28 in Dubai, where I was a panelist for 2 side meetings. Actually, I went to one and was invited to another. The first panel was convened by Parliamericas, of which the National Assembly is a member, and on which I serve as a member of the board. The panel's title was the Escazú Agreement and ACE, Strengthening Environmental Democracy in Latin America and the Caribbean. Joining me were the Honorable Decima Williams, the President of the Senate of Grenada, Honorable Juan Carlos Lozada, Member of the Chamber of Representatives of Colombia, and Carlos de Miguel, Head of the Sustainable Development and Human Settlements Division of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. You may recall this Honorable House ratified the Escazú Agreement in February of this year. The second panel was a common climate: can different parties work together on the climate challenge in an era of polarization? This was convened by Globe International, the Global Legislators Association. Joining me were the Honorable Chris Skidmore and Honorable Alex Coble, Conservative and Labour parties members of the House of Commons in the United Kingdom, and Professor Thomas Hale of the Blavatnik School of Government, Oxford University. I was delighted to share the work of the Senate, and at the very end of the panel, I will say that having heard about our work in the Senate and the fact that we do manage to not only cross parties, but join with independent senators from time to time, they said that the UK House can learn something from Belize. Thought I would share that with you. I also attended the parliamentary meeting organized by the Interparliamentary Union to facilitate knowledge sharing, international cooperation, and exchange of best practices for climate action. My third announcement is to recognize and record our unwavering support for the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence campaign, which commenced on November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which noted National World AIDS Day on December 1st, and which concluded on December 10th, Human Rights Day. The campaign was held under the theme Unite Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls. Fourth and final announcement, I congratulate our senior women's national team, Lady Jaguars, on making history and winning all 6 matches this year and moving from League C to League B on their journey to qualify and participate in the upcoming CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup. We are so very proud of you. I also wish to extend our deepest sympathies to the Deputy Clerk, Mrs. Clarita Petch, on the passing of her brother. Please know that our thoughts and prayers are with you in this difficult time. Honorable members, by letter dated 7 December 2023, Cabinet's recommendations has been signified to the following. 1. General Revenue Supplementary Appropriation 2023-2024 Number 2 Bill 2023. 2. Municipal Securities Bill 2023. 3. Fiscal Incentives Decisions of the Minister Validation Bill 2023. 4. Financial Services Commission Amendment Bill 2023. 5. Limited Liability Companies Amendment Number 2 Bill 2023. 6. Money Laundering and Terrorism Prevention Amendment Number 2 Bill 2023. 7. International Foundations Amendment Bill 2023. 8. Non-Profit Organizations Amendment Bill 2023. And 9. Belize City Port Acquisition and Settlement Deeds Bill 2023.
Bills brought from the House of Representatives.
I recognize the Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, with your permission, first may I congratulate you and thank you for your service abroad in representing this Honorable Senate. And secondly, on behalf of the members of this side, the government senators, I would like to join you in offering our condolences to Ms. Petch and her family. And finally, to join you in the congratulations to our successful athletes. Madam President, I rise to take charge of the following bills. General Revenue Supplementary Appropriation 2324, Number 2, Bill 2023. Belizean Nationality Amendment Bill 2023. Economic Citizenship Abolition of Rights Bill 2023. Municipal Securities Bill 2023. Fiscal Incentives Decision of Minister Validation Bill 2023. Financial Services Commission Amendment Bill 2023. Limited Liability Companies Amendment Number 2 Bill 2023. Money Laundering and Terrorism Prevention Amendment Number 2 Bill 2023. International Foundations Amendment Bill 2023. Non-Profit Organizations Amendment Bill 2023. And Belize City Port Acquisition and Settlement Deeds Bill 2023. Madam President, in accordance with Standing Order Number 49-1, I move that the bills be taken through all their stages forthwith. Madam President, sorry, I omitted to welcome back our colleague Senators Martinez and Kay. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that the bills be taken through all their stages forthwith. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Aye. Those against, kindly say no. The ayes have it.
Papers.
I recognize the Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I rise to lay on the table sessional papers number 75/1/14, supplementary appropriation number 2, scheduled for fiscal year 2023-2024, and number 76/1/14, 21st annual report of the Contractor General for the period 1st April 2022 to the 31st March 2023.
Honorable members, those papers are ordered to lie on the table.
Motion relating to the business or sitting of the Senate.
I recognize the Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that at its rising today, the Senate adjourn to a date to be fixed by the President.
Honorable members, the question is that at its rising today, the Senate adjourn to a date to be fixed by the President. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Aye. Those against, kindly say no. The ayes have it.
Public business, government business, Bills for second reading.
I recognize the leader of government business.
Madam President, I rise to move a second reading of a bill for an act to appropriate further sums of money for the use of the public service of Belize for the financial year ending on the 31st day of March 2024. Madam President, the bill and the paper are before the Senate. This bill seeks to appropriate $86,929,085 for the use of the public service. Madam President, set out in the attachment to the bill is the breakdown. Members of the Senate were also given an opportunity last Friday to get more details and to ask their questions on this supplementary. We seek to appropriate, Madam President, $37.67 million for recurrent expenditure, for CAP 2, $31.8 million, and for CAP 3, $17.419 million. Madam President, the details are before the Honorable Senate.
I recognize Senator Beverly Williams.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam President. What can I say? I'm not certain that the details were provided. We did not get the long form, and I would like to register our objection to the approach used in calling us before a meeting to explain without sending the documentation. Madam Speaker, I attempted to look at the Excel sheet that was sent to us, and what can we say? It's recurrent indeed, $37 million, most of its salaries, materials and supply operating costs. But of note, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Finance. Madam President, I'm very sorry. I think I'm thinking ahead of myself and listening to my colleagues before in those presentations that happened on Thursday. And I beg your pardon, Madam President. Ministry of Finance, and I know my colleague Senator Koy may say we didn't take advantage of the opportunity, but calling us on the last minute is not the approach we like. I reiterate that. It just goes to show, in my mind, and looking at this, poor planning as usual. We expected a supplementary in this quarter. And if we look at that, traveling and subsistence, $1 million. Operating costs, $1 million. Maintenance, $1 million. Grants, $1 million. Who's going to get those grants? And why $1 million, $1 million, $1 million? Compensation and indemnities, $2.1 million. I don't know the $1 million. Is it rounding up? Is it just a figure being thrown in there? Speaks, in my view, to poor planning. Central admin under the Ministry of Health. I know the CAT scan is in the CAP 2 part of the budget, Madam President, and I guess the Belizean people will finally be able to get some good health care with the use of that CAT scan. It took them 3 years, but we're finally getting it. In central medical stores, all in the recurrent budget, $23 million, material and supplies. Let's see an open tender for the supplies. The tape, the syringe, and the Tylenol, and the medication for those people with diabetes. All of those, let's hope, but let's see an open tender, no single source tendering for that one. $23 million. Let us not have to destroy when we buy. Under the, Senator Carl, be careful, Attorney General Ministry, $1.5 million. Maybe the Attorney General will tell us if the people in persecution branch will finally get their due salary increase there. Other than that, the grants, Madam President, they are donor funds, so there's not much to say there. And again, in Cap 2, of note is the $2 million for the Caracal Road. I think Honorable Espat is big on boasting about saving $29 million, but we come back for $2 million for Caracal Road under that Cap 2 project. Other than that, poor planning, Madam President, what is to say? It will go through the House anyway. The Belizean people should know that we get up and we look at it. There's nothing much here that we can say about this bill other than poor planning, and certainly I remind them of the $1 million. Let's see where those go. Let's hope it's not used in March. And the grant, where will we be using, and what is the grant all about? Thank you, Madam President.
I recognize Senator Kevin Herrera.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'd just like to highlight 3 areas this morning that I think we should try to focus on, so that we could maybe bring some more transparency and accountability to these areas. The first one, Madam President, is under Cap 1, Ministry of Health and Wellness, materials and supplies of $23 million. $23 million is quite a bit, but again, in probably the context of it, buying medicine and equipment for the entire health sector throughout the country, it might not even be adequate. The point I wanted to make, though, Madam President, is that we keep on seeing on the news where groups working within the health sector are complaining about shortages of medicine, equipment, expired medicines. And I think that in these contracts, Madam President, perhaps we could try to bring some more transparency into it in terms of, one, the open bid process, like what Senator Williams mentioned, but also perhaps scrutinize the things that are coming in to make sure that they're meeting the standards that we set. Madam President, I'd like to also highlight that in these areas here, these supplies and medicines are coming to assist those who are most in need in this country, probably in many cases those who don't have a second option, who can't go to the private facilities to get these medications, and so they don't have the option. And so I think it's incumbent on us even more so. There's a higher degree of responsibility, I believe, given the constituency that is being served in this particular area especially, that we do all possible to make sure that there's value for what we're spending in this area. And so I'm hoping that we could start looking and probably doing a better job in this area, Madam President. The other area, Madam President, the other 2 areas are in under Cap 2. The first is under the Office of the Prime Minister, the Constituency Social Assistance Program, or the politicking fund, as I guess it could be better called. But no quarrel. I mean, it's been going on for a while. I think the persons on the ground, are confronted with many needs that come up to them all the time. All I'm saying, Madam President, is perhaps we should bring some more transparency and accountability into the process. Are these funds being audited after they're issued, after they're giving out? Are we getting receipts? Do we know where the money is being spent or how it is being spent? Who's being impacted? I think that again, we take note of that aspect of it. The third and the last point I wanted to raise, Madam President, is under the Ministry of Natural Resources, Petroleum and Mining, $6 million. This one here, Madam President, I think there's a lot more to the story, I think, than is being told. And I really think that at some point, the government should state to the public how much contingency liabilities exist in the Ministry of Natural Resources in terms of land acquisition or issues that they may have running legally with respect to landowners. But I understand it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, Madam President, and I think that this is a huge issue for us, and we'll continue to see these six for years and years and years are addressed in any significant way. I think I think we're just. I think there are better uses for this type of money, Madam President, until there's a serious effort to try to correct many of the ills in that ministry. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam President.
I recognize Senator Bishop Alvin Bengusha.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and welcome back to my two social partner colleagues as they join us again this morning. Madam President, I rise to make my own contribution. And GAMAS would like to put on record and to place on record its thanks. And I especially mention GAMAS because, as I said, this is the body that, for us as churches, we have authorized to speak on our behalf as denominational entities in the country. And while there might be others who speak, I want to especially emphasize GAMAS because they are closest to us, as I said. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but especially in light of the fact that they're the ones who answer to us as denominational institutions in a direct way. And so they have been doing their own assignment and homework in speaking to the government and especially to the minister himself, Madam President. So I want to put that on record. Allow me, Madam President, to speak to a few things and to begin with, as I mentioned before, the Ministry of Education. You will notice that